him. He's stealing a car from a gas station. He's basically, I don't, the way I kind of put it, he's basically the Joker. Does that, I mean, that's very much what he feels like. It's a lot of crime of opportunity sort of stuff. And just a man who, and Sweetie talks about this, about the god of chaos or whatever. And a man who is just kind of chaos incarnate.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so he's also a man of anachronism. So he drives these older cars, and no car is safe around Clement Mansell, by the way. He's going to wreck it or steal it, one of the two, or both, maybe. He's got this tape, and so I didn't realize at the beginning. So he puts the tape in the tape deck. One of the reasons he steals the car is because it has a tape deck. Yeah. He puts the tape in the tape deck and he's singing along to it as he's driving into Detroit. I think that he's singing along to himself and his band. Did you catch that?
Oh, no, I did not catch that. That's interesting.
When he and Sandy go in and talk to Sweetie, he asks Sweetie, "Hey, are you gigging at all?" Meaning, "Hey, are you playing guitar at all?" And Sweetie essentially asks him the same question back. So apparently they were in a band together, or both, knew that the other appreciated and played music. Yeah. And he talks about how his band just did a demo in Texas a few weeks ago, and when he goes to the bathroom, Sweetie asks Sandy, "Hey, have you heard that tape?" And Sandy's like, he's never going to let anybody hear that tape. And so I think based on the way that it was cut and the sound, I originally thought, oh, this is a studio outtake for the White Stripes doing Seven Nation Army. Yeah. But then later on in the episode, I was like, oh, wait, no, this is Clement Mansell's band, and he's singing along with it in the tape deck in his car. Which, again, is consistent because the man is very into himself. He spends a lot of time looking in the mirror, admiring himself. He's got, I put my note here is that he's got Carcetti from The Wire energy.
I had him down as like Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai.
Okay, sure.
Like the guy is like in that time machine, and he's like listening to like rock music.
Yep. Yep.
That's what I had him down as.
Yeah, just a man of anachronism. And no cell phones. He's got the tighty whities. He buys pot from a dealer, not a dispensary.
He's like, I guess he'd be like almost like Austin Powers in a way, like put in that time machine.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just a caveman.
Caveman lawyer. You think Johnny Lawrence and the Wildman, Oklahoma Wild, they all and Austin Powers all came from that same frozen, they're defrosted.
Yeah, exactly. They've all been frozen together. I do think it's an interesting way to sort of, because if you think the book takes place in the 80s, right? So there's a lot of elements of the book that you have to account for as you're adapting the story. And so doing it this way allows them to sort of adapt it in a way that makes it very unique to Mansell's character, which I liked. I liked the choice that the writers made there. I thought it gives the character some depth that he didn't have in the book.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I never read this. I never read the book. Okay. So yeah.
It's a good book. I would recommend it for anybody who likes to read. But I would watch the show first now at this point, and then read the book afterwards. The other thing I wanted to point out in the book, he's not in his tighty whities all the time, like he is in the show. He wears this kimono around the apartment that Sandy is squatting in. Okay. But they do a little tribute to it in the show. They show the kimono behind the glass hung on the wall, and he doesn't take it out and put it on, but in the book he does. He wears the kimono around. He's a weirdo. So We have another new feature that I wanted to get to here for a second. This one is called Clement Mansell, You, Sir, Are No Boyd Crowder.
I served with
Boyd Crowder.
I knew
Boyd Crowder.
Senator, you're no
Boyd Crowder. So, anyone who doesn't know what that audio clip is from. 1988, a man named Dan Quayle was running for vice president of the United States, and he had very limited experience. And during a debate, his opponent said that to him in probably the most triumphant moment of the campaign, which was ultimately a disaster of a campaign. But yeah, you, sir, are no John Kennedy, or Jack Kennedy, rather. I worked with him. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. You, sir, are no Jack Kennedy. And Clement Mansell is no Boyd Crowder. And the example that we have of that this week also happens to be our word of the week.
You use your tongue prettier than a $20 whore.
During the meeting where Carolyn and Mansell call Raylan to Carolyn Wilder's office to have a conversation, he uses the word, or attempts to use the word, corroborated, and he fails to use the word corroborated a couple of times, mispronounces it, but corroborated is a verb. It means confirmed or given support to a statement, theory, or finding, and I thought it was a good way for the writers and the director to sort of introduce Mansell to Raylan and also make very clear to us, the audience, that Clement Mansell is not Boyd Crowder. Boyd Crowder is not Clement Mansell. They are very different people who see life in very different ways and experience life in very different ways. So Clement Mansell doesn't have the education or the well-readness, if that's a word, of Boyd Crowder, and it shows. But
yeah,
potentially far more dangerous than Boyd Crowder because he's very unpredictable.
And I guess we had a little bit of the dynamic that Boyd and Raylan had with Clement Mansell and Raylan. It's not, maybe it hasn't fully developed, but I guess we'll see. I mean, I always thought that those were the best parts, when Raylan and Boyd would have these conversations, and it doesn't seem that. I mean, we haven't seen that in this series yet. I mean, it's still early, but
no, all we've seen is sort of Mansell antagonizing Raylan, needling him a little bit. Maybe in a very ill-advised sort of. He makes a couple of really smart decisions here, and one of them is to have the meeting, right? Uh-huh. Having the meeting in Carolyn Wilder's office allows him to see the guy who's hunting him. It makes sure he can move freely, even if he's being watched, because he knows that they don't have anything on him at that point, right? Mm-hmm. and it makes sure that the cops are going to be on their best behavior, that they have to be, because they know that the lawyer's involved and she's going to be watching everything they do. I thought that was a really savvy sort of maneuver by Mansell to have that meeting in Carolyn Wilder's office.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, I'm also wondering, is he a felon? Like, because what do we know about felons? We know felons aren't allowed to have guns. And so, one of the continuing plot elements of Justified is felons carrying guns, which is, something that's essentially just dismissed by Raylan. I don't think we ever see him taking anybody in for having a gun on them as a felon. He uses it as leverage if he needs to, but ultimately nobody ever goes to jail for it. But if Mansell is a felon and he's carrying a gun around, I can't imagine a scenario where Raylan isn't just going to haul him in and lock him up for possession of that firearm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So maybe that's why Mansell doesn't have one on him when he's at the restaurant with Willett.
Yeah, that's true. Huh. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
All right. So let's see. What else about Mansell? Oh, I thought it was somewhat unbelievable that Mansell found Raylan's hotel without having to look too hard. Like, it was the third one I found, or the third one I checked.
Can you imagine him like what is that, brute forcing, like going through whatever the yellow pages, since he's like has some of these like time time warp.
Right. Yeah. Just like George Clooney in Out of Sight, right? Because that's what he does.
Right. Yeah. Or the T-1000 in Terminator.
Right.
Looking for Sarah Connor.
He's there in his tidy whities with the yellow pages and his dial phone out.
Raylan Givens.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, let's see. Let's talk about Sandy Stanton for a minute. So Sandy Stanton is a cocktail waitress. She's also Clement's girl, if you will. To me, she felt very similar to Bridget Fonda's character in Jackie Brown a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of a pothead, a bit of a hustler, but probably a pretty sweet girl underneath it all. I think being played well by Adelaide Clemens also. I saw an interview with her where she sort of compares herself to Alabama from True Romance, which I think is also a fair comparison. Although I like that movie a lot less. So I think she's closer to Melanie. Hopefully she doesn't also meet a tragic end like Melody does, in a mall parking lot.
Lewis.
So I don't have a whole lot else to say about Sandy Stanton. I think she's doing a very good job. She's the actress is doing a very good job, and I'm interested to see kind of how her character becomes more of a part of the story moving on. All right, let's see. Carolyn Wilder, we talked about. I still think Taraji P. Henson would have been fantastic in that role as Carolyn Wilder. So.
Yeah. She's probably filming some other, like she has a busy schedule.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, she's either doing a movie or she's starring in a TV show or something. Yeah. She's,
I mean, at this point, she's probably like A-list, I guess.
I would say so. Yeah. So. Let's see. I have a few other notes here. Cinematography. Let's talk about cinematography for a moment. So the first series of Justified, the first 6 seasons, essentially shot very much like a TV procedural, right? Very similar to like basically every other TV show that's about cops and how it was shot. But this one is shot much more like a movie, I thought. A little more artsy. You've got kind of more Dutch angles and sort of off-center camera framing. And then you had this really awesome continuous shot when Raylan shows up to the Judge Guy murder scene, where this drone flies in as he's coming in on the car and then sort of flies past him to show what the locals are doing. But it's like this continuous unedited or uncut shot that I thought was really, really cool. And just wanted to shout out the cinematographer, the director for really arting up Justified a little bit. I like that they've taken advantage of a shorter production schedule and fewer episodes to kind of art it up a little bit.
And maybe some more money to spend too.
Yeah, that could be too. Yeah, they probably were pretty limited on cash in the first series, but this one, since they knew kind of that it had an end date associated with it, it was probably a little bit easier to get. You knew how much money you had and how much you could spend.
Yeah. And I think and we've talked about this before with when they were subbing in LA for Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely don't get that feeling with this, like just the look of it, you can tell that they're not in Southern California, because we know what Southern California looks like.
Right. Exactly.
So
yeah. It's very clear they're not in Southern California. Yeah. Even with the gray filter that they throw over everything, it's still clear that it's not Southern California. So
yeah. The note I had was like, just going back to the very beginning, the way they opened the series. Yeah. And they had like, whatever that graphic was. It just reminded me of like a Wes Anderson.
Oh yeah, it did. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. 37 miles outside Detroit or whatever. And the way it pops up. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. That the yellow graphic, if it had been shadowed, if